Hey guys, welcome around the grounds here, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the NRL Round 1 matches, and we're going to be predicting who we're going to win these games. We're going to be looking at the team list, and then we're going to be deciding who we think is going to win based off the trial forms and based off last year's form. With that being said, let's jump straight into it. Alright guys, now jumping straight into it, we've got the Panthers versus the Manly Sea Eagles here at Bluebet Stadium at 8 o'clock on Thursday. It's hard to predict these sort of first round games, but the one big out that we see in the team list here is there is no Nathan Cleary for the Panthers, and that is a massive loss for them, because given their form trial, especially their last game against the Eels where they didn't even score a point without Cleary playing, it's a bit of a worrying sign. However, looking at these team lists, Panthers do have quite a good forward pack. They've got full strength everywhere else. Charlie Staines is playing number 2 and Isaac Tago is now playing the centre. I assume he's going to be in the left side where Matt Burton was last season, but we'll wait and see. And Manly, they look like they have pretty much the same roster as last year. Everyone looks fit and healthy, at least that back line does. We'll be able to see if Manly can have another good season, but just based off the Panthers being the premiers and coming back to their stadium and playing in front of their fans, I'm going to give them the slight edge here. But because Nathan Cleary's out, I'm going to predict that this game's going to be quite close, and I'm going to go Panthers 19, Sea Eagles 18. Alright guys, now moving on to the second game of the week, we've got the Canberra Raiders versus the Cronulla Sharks on Friday at 6 PM at GIO Stadium, Canberra. These clubs don't like each other, and we can go back to Mick Ennis mocking the Raiders with a Viking clap a few years ago to demonstrate that point. Looking at the team list here, we got William Kennedy for the Sharks at fullback, Matt Moylan at 6 and Nicho Hynes at 7, which I think is quite a dangerous spine, with Blake Brayley also being number 9. For the Raiders, their spine is Nickel Clockstar, Jack White, and Brad Schneider starts at 7 because Jamal Fogarty is injured, and obviously Josh Hodgson at number 9. Something interesting to see here is Andrew Fafita is actually on the interchange. This is his first game back since he had that bad throat injury last year or so. And Dale Finucane's actually captaining the side now for his first game under Cronulla, which is big props to him, because coming to your club and then just being able to captain them must show that you are quite a good leader and quality player, which we already know he is. But in terms of this game, I don't think there'll be much in this. Both teams will be fresh from a big preseason. They're both going to be hungry, especially versus each other. Canberra at home, if the Sharks were at home, I would say the Sharks would probably get a bit of a comfortable win, maybe like 6-12 points. But because it's at Canberra here, and because it's the first round, I'm going to go for another close game. I'm going to go 2 1-point wins in the first 2 games we predicted. I'm going to say the Sharks are going to win 15-14 against the Raiders. Alright guys, now moving on to Friday at 8 PM at Suncorp Stadium, we have the Brisbane Broncos versus the South Sydney Rabbitohs. On the calendar, this was marked down as Adam Reynolds versing his old club. However, he is out injured for this game and he'll not be facing his former side. The Broncos have elected to put Jermaine Asako at fullback for this game and Selwyn Cobbo on the wing instead, with Billy Walters and Albert Kelly in the halves, which is a bit interesting decision in my opinion, because I thought they were going to be going with some other players in those areas. Kurt Capewell, I think from what I've seen, is going to be the captain for this game, and he's a good boost for their forward packs. For the Rabbitohs, they got Blake Taaffe at fullback because obviously no Latrell. Tane Milne is on the wing, as well as Alex Johnston obviously. Lachlan Ilias is number 7 and he's going to partner Cody Walker. And besides that, the Rabbitohs look pretty full strength from what I can see. Yes, the Broncos have recruited well, but some of these recruits aren't playing. I just think they have a few people playing out of position, and I think they'll put a decent performance up, but I think the Rabbitohs quality is too much, so I'm going to go for a Rabbitohs 26 to a Broncos 16. Alright guys, now moving on to the first game of Saturday at 3 PM at the Sydney Cricket Ground, we have the Sydney Roosters versus the Newcastle Knights. This game here is going to be a bit interesting because Roosters have a few players out. They've got Billy Smith playing in the centres, who seem to be a promising young centre coming up, and Luke Keary has returned after being out for, I think, was it all of last season, or at least a lot of it. He's going to finally partner Sam Walker in the halves, which will be good to see. Connor Watson, he's going to be coming in as hooker because he's going to be replacing Sam Verrills, who was suspended. But for the Knights, Dominic Young comes in on the wing and he's given a shot because Heimel Hunt is out. Kurt Mann has got the lock position ahead of Phoenix Crosland, who's on the bench as well. Daniel Saifidi is going to be out for this game, which is a bit of a blow because he's got a small fracture in his tibia. And then it'll be interesting to see the new halves combination of Jake Clifford and Adam Clune work together, as well as how they work with Kalen Ponga. That'll be interesting. Dan Gagai and Bradman Best in the centres, that is a good centre pairing, so hopefully they can get the best out of them. But I think this year the Roosters have a lot of players back from injury. They're going to be raring to go. They're going to be wanting to win the premiership this year. And at the Sydney Cricket Ground, where I think historically, especially last year and a couple years recently, they just put cricket stores literally at the cricket ground. I don't quite think they'll get a cricket score this time, but I still think they'll win comfortably, and I'm going to go for Roosters 30 to the Knights 12 win. Alright guys, now moving on to the 5:30 game on Saturday, we've got the New Zealand Warriors versus St George Illawarra Dragons at the Sunshine Coast Stadium, which is now the Warriors' new home. The Warriors, they've got some good recruits over the summer. They've got Shaun Johnson returning, and he's starting this game alongside Cody Nikorima in the halves, which used to be their old pairing, and we know how lethal they are. Snell Harris-Tavita is playing fullback with DWZ on the wing. But yeah, the Warriors look fairly full strength. But looking at the Dragons, we've got Tyrell Sloan at fullback. Moses Sully is playing number 3. Talatau Amone is partnering Ben Hunt in the halves, with Andrew McCulloch playing in the hooking role. Moses Mbai being the 14 coming off the bench for impact. This one is hard to say, but based off the trial form from both teams, this is the only reason I'm going to be able to predict this game. Especially since the Warriors only played one trial game, but when they did, they looked pretty good against the Storm. But the Storm obviously they weren't playing full strength. And the Dragons, they also didn't look too bad in trial form. They beat the Eels first week, and then they beat the Rabbitohs in the second week, which is pretty good form. That's consistency. And if you think about the Dragons recently in the last few seasons, they haven't been consistent, and that's their main issue. This one is also going to be close. There's some good games this week, but this one, I think I'm going to give this one to the Warriors because I think the Warriors are primed for a good season. I think they can finally make the top 8, and they won't finish 9th, they won't finish 10th around the top 8. They're going to make the top 8. I have faith in them, and I'm going to go for a 24-18 win to the New Zealand Warriors. Alright, now moving on to the last game of Saturday at 7:35 at CommBank Stadium, Sydney, we have the West Tigers versus the Melbourne Storm. Last year, if you had predicted this game, you'd be silly to back the Tigers this game, but I think this game here will be a bit closer than maybe the previous encounters have been, because I remember watching the West Tigers versus Storm last year, and I think I was just having dinner or something, and then I just saw the scoreboard. It was like 40-0 to Storm at half time, and I was like, wow, that's insane. But in saying that, I think the West Tigers have got a few good recruits. I think Tyrone Peachy's good. He's a good buy. They have someone in centres called Oliver Gildart. I've never heard of him, to be honest, so we'll have to see what he's about. They've got Jackson Hastings, who's finally come back to the NRL, which will be good to see. Tyrone Peachy's starting on interchange, Dan Laurie at fullback. But yeah, now looking over at the Storm, they've got Ryan Pappenhausen playing at fullback, which I think he had a bit of an ankle injury or an ankle scare, so that's good that he's back. There is no Cameron Munster in the halves. Nick Meaney will be playing number 6 alongside Jerome Hughes. Xavier Coates will be playing on the wing for his first game for the Storm. I'm excited to see what he can do when he's playing around some really good players such as the Storm. George Jennings and Remus Smith are still in the back line with Justin Olam. And the forwards still just as strong as ever. They've got pretty much the same team as last season, with Jaden Nikorima on the interchange as well. It's hard to predict this game. Part of me just wants to say the Storm are going to absolutely thrash the West Tigers, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I still think the Storm will win, but I don't think it'll be such a high scoring game as we're used to from these two sides when they verse each other. With that being said, I'm going to go for the Storm 28, the West Tigers 18. Alright guys, now moving on to the first game on Sunday, we've got the Parramatta Eels versus the Gold Coast Titans at CommBank Stadium. The Eels are unchanged from their last trial that saw them stomp the Panthers 36-0. This could be the year of the Eel. I'm quite optimistic for the Eels. Most of their players, they have contracts running out, they won't be there next year, so they have to make this season work. And I think for that to work, they need to finish in the top 4, because they haven't finished in the top 4, well, at least not last year, and I don't know about the years before that, but they need to do that so they can have that second week in finals, because I think they just ran out of steam at the end of last season, especially in that elimination against the Panthers, which they lost, I think it was 8-6. But on the Titans side, they had a decent season last year. They got in the top 8, which is an improvement. Their fans would have been quite happy about that. Jaden Campbell was a shining light for them, I think, and he's also starting at fullback this game. AJ Brimson is playing 5'8 with Toby Sexton in the halves as predicted. Isaac Liu has come from the Roosters, and he's going to be in the forwards with a bunch of the other Titans players like Fodawaka and Fafita and Tino, obviously. I think the Titans will be good, but I think it will take them a little bit to click into gear, especially with a new halfback. I think the loss of Jamal Fogarty is actually quite big because he kind of steered the ship around for them, especially since a lot of their players are young. But with that being said, I think this game will be quite competitive. It wouldn't surprise me if Titans win this one. I think the first half will be quite close. I think Titans will definitely give them a run for their money, but I think the Eels, their quality, them being together for a while, that'll just push them over the line a bit here. And I'm going to go for an Eels 16, Titans 10 win. Right guys, now on to the last game of the round. We have the North Queensland Cowboys versus the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. This game is going to be played at Townsville in the Cowboys' home ground. The Cowboys, they've got a new halves pairing of Tom Dearden and Chad Townsend, which will be good to see. Jason Taumalolo is back in the forwards and he is starting. Peter Hickey is in the centres, Valentine Holmes, Kyle Felt and Murray Taulagi are on the wings. And obviously the Hammer at fullback, so that is a fairly decent back line. So yeah, they've got a fairly solid team. They don't look like they have any injuries or many injuries at all. And then on the Bulldogs side, they got a lot of new faces here. We've seen a few of them in the trials, but we've seen the team list now. The team list is out. Matt Burton and Jake Averillo will be the halves. Jeremy Marshall-King will be playing number 9. Braden Burns has edged out Aaron Shook in the centres, and Jaden Ockenball will also start on the wing alongside Josh Adokar, who will make his first game as well. In the forwards, obviously, Pangai Jr., Paul Vaughan, they'll be making their club debuts as well, with Max King also doing the same, but he will be starting on the bench. This game's tough to call because the Cowboys are at home and they have a decent lineup. Yes, they didn't have a good season last season, but they have players there. They have quality. They have strike players in the Hammer and Valentine Holmes. And Chad Townsend, he's a cool, calm and collected halfback. He's been around for a while. He knows his trade. And then you obviously have Tamalolo, he's a really good forward, and Cohen Hess, who, when he first debuted and first came out of the scene, was one of the best second rowers or forwards that there is. But he's sort of slowed down recently in the last few years, so hopefully he can get back to his best. There's not much in this game. I think the Bulldogs will probably have a better year than the Cowboys, but something's telling me that the Cowboys are just going to start well this season, that you're going to get a win. I'm going to go for the Cowboys 22 to the Bulldogs 18. Alright guys, so that is the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a sub and a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to comment if you think any of these teams are going to win, or who you think will win and who won't win. I might also be getting a guest on here later on in the season, and we'll have a sort of prediction battle between me and all the guests that are on. But we'll wait and see if that happens. But yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.